This is the sign here that JD Vance is the MAGA heir apparent. He's going to be leaned on in the White House to do some work, to pick up the slack, to put his arms around the messaging, to be that new face of MAGA, because I think people are going to demand it. This is, in my opinion, pretty impressive stuff. JD Vance holds a commanding lead in the 2028 GOP primary field. So the stuff this guy's doing is working. Like, he's doing a good job. This is stunning polling. November 18th, 20th. And how likely is it that you will vote in one of the two major party presidential primaries? So we have that as a demo. Oh, I wonder if it's in the crosstabs. It might not be, in which case that's bad on me. But of the people who said that it's likely to vote in the primaries, are you going to vote Republican or Democrat? 44% say Republican, 47% say Democrat. Now, that's interesting. This is almost like a soft generic ballot, and Democrats are up 3 on this, 58 to 31 among the Zoomers. Remember, these people gave Donald Trump a 60% job approval rating in March, 60%. And yet, their base state is to vote 58% in the Democrat primary, only 31% in the Republican primary. It was epic for Trump to have these people supporting him because of Doge, because of dismantling the government. This is what I was trying to convey. The over 65 people will vote for you anyways because they hate socialism. But these people don't care about socialism. You have to get them another way. What do they want? They just want order and fairness. That's all they want. It's not that hard. It really isn't. Every talking head on YouTube can tell you that. But among people who say they're going to vote in the Republican primary, JD Vance is now at 62%, up from 53%, and he's now a 6-to-1 favorite over Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis, who are tied at 10. So he went from 5-to-1 to 6-to-1. As a reference point, we'll get back to the reference point. So his numbers are getting better just in like a 3-month period. I think August was the last time we polled it. That's really incredible because he's had some big moments. He went out and did some stuff at the Turning Point USA. Well, he did some stuff at Charlie Kirk's funeral, but then he had that Turning Point USA speech that got a lot of clips. And he's been doing stuff on Twitter for sure. And obviously, whatever he's doing, people are taking notice, and not in a bad way. And to be honest with you, I think Marco Rubio and Ron DeSantis are doing well too. But this is the sign here that JD Vance is the MAGA heir apparent. This is his race to lose. And I think when you see numbers like this, increasingly he's going to be leaned on in the White House to do some work, to pick up the slack, to put his arms around the messaging, to be that new face of MAGA, because I think people are going to demand it. I think, again, I don't know what's going on with Trump. I don't think it's like, I think what I think it is that I just don't think he's fighting right now. Because when you're fighting for somebody or fighting something, you know what you're fighting. You isolate and target, right? There's no isolation and targeting. It's just shooting from the hip. It's just throwing jabs is what it feels like. It's throwing jabs. And it doesn't feel like there's weight behind it. But when JD Vance spoke in that clip, it felt like there was weight behind it. You know what I mean? It's like Trump wasn't even sure who to be angry at. He was angry at Biden and he was angry at the media. Well, may I recommend being angry at the deep state and being angry at large corporations who have offshored America's labor. Be angry at the globalists. Like, pick the right enemies and show people these enemies and target them. And that is not happening. And I think when you see JD Vance's numbers go up like that with JD, like maybe it is happening. Sorry to say for Ted Cruz, but you don't have any shot, 4%. And I can only assume that the reason that Ted Cruz is running is in order to muddy the water and to throw Israel into a situation where Israel probably shouldn't be a part of this. Probably not important enough to America that it's like one of the main topics that's going to be talked about in every single freaking debate. There are only like 900,000 conservative voting Jewish Americans, and unfortunately, because they have a lot of money to throw around, like Ted Cruz is going to run for president and every single debate's going to be about this. He's going to look just as bad like an NPC as Cuomo was in the Democrat mayoral primary. Like, I'm so weary about it. Tulsi Gabbard, 2%, Tim Scott, 2%, Rand Paul, 3%. None of these are, again, it's JD's to lose. Obviously, he could lose this 100%. Yeah, he's really, the millennials like him, 63%. The Gen Z is not quite as sure, but it's still 56%. The Gen Z likes Marco, though, more than Gen Pop. I wonder why that is. It could just be noise. 18%, but JD Vance is doing, 11 times better than Ron DeSantis among younger people. It's the olds that like Ron DeSantis. And I assume that that's almost entirely because of temperament. Yeah, like all the rest of this is noise. These numbers are just too small to mean anything. Look, the 65 and older like JD, 68%, which is interesting because JD Vance is not anti-Israel, but he has had the strongest messaging about it. And again, I'm talking about it because it was a very big, recent, real topic that JD Vance said stuff about. And it's also interesting, too, because as an economic populist, JD Vance is most likely to support potential policies that might affect the wealth of individuals age 65 and older in a way different than other folks. I don't know. I might be reading too much into this, but, by race, I mean, like, obviously very few Black people are going to be voting in the Republican primary. But actually, what number said? 33% of them. That's actually pretty strong. And they love JD and they hate Ron DeSantis. They just hate him. Rubio does pretty well. 7% of Democrats are voting in the primary. JD Vance has a huge lead, but this number is not very statistically significant. But this is interesting. Donald Trump has like almost a -20 job approval rating among independents, but 39 to 35 independent likely primary voters are going to vote in the Republican primary. And among independents, JD doesn't do as well, but among Republicans, he's 68 to 9, 68 to 10. Republicans love JD Vance. So I alluded to a comparison, and 4 years ago now would have been 2021. The first 2024 presidential primary we did was April of 2022. Everybody following me? So this is sooner than the first poll we did for Trump versus Biden. And in April, before the midterms, in April, most likely because of things like January 6th, Donald Trump was only winning among Republican primary voters 48 to 24 among DeSantis. So he had a 28-point lead here where JD Vance has a 59-point lead. Like, he's crushing it. And of course, in Donald Trump's primary, Donald Trump, that was the best DeSantis ever did. DeSantis declared, and every single time we polled, it was worse for DeSantis. I assume that it's going to be very similar here. And I also assume that I think a lot of people will declare. I think a lot of money will get thrown at this primary. I don't think it's going to last very long. I mean, you might have one like establishment who gets $600 million worth of Democrat money, like Nikki Haley, and all the Democrats like re-register as Republicans to go vote and give her 25%. Yeah, I look so tiresome.